Hey everyone, what's going on? Glad you're here. If you've been hopping back into Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection and bouncing between the arcade classics and the new museum-style extras, there's a fresh update on Steam that actually moves the needle in a couple of important ways. I'm going to walk you through what changed, why it matters if you play online or even just mess around in single player, how to check you're on the right build, and a few practical things you can try right now to get cleaner matches and fewer headaches. We'll also talk about what's coming next because the developers have already spelled out some pretty exciting online plans, and this patch connects to that bigger picture. Before we get rolling, quick anchor point. The update is HOTFIX 1.5.25, and it landed on Steam with a build labeled 2717843 on November 8th, 2025 in UTC. That's the one I'll be talking about for the rest of this video. So what actually changed? The headline item fixes a crash that could happen during matchmaking if the other player had certain Steam profile names. If you've ever queued up for a quick match, seen the spinner, felt that little thrill that a fight was about to start, and then your game just threw in the towel and collapsed back to the desktop, yeah, that was one of the culprits. It sounds oddly specific, but these platform identity bugs can be brutal because you don't control who the matchmaking service pairs you with. This update neutralizes that edge case, so you should see fewer hard crashes on the way into a match. If matchmaking felt like a coin flip for you this week, give it another go after updating. It's one of the concrete wins in this patch. The second big fix is for desyncs tied to certain offline options bleeding into online play. In plain language, you tweak a setting while you're playing by yourself, you jump online, and suddenly the two clients don't agree on what reality looks like. That mismatch causes the game to desynchronize, and then you get rollback rubber banding, freezes, or forced resets. The team has specifically addressed that linkage, so local preferences shouldn't sabotage your online sessions anymore. If you were fiddling with things like visual or gameplay toggles offline and then your online fights went haywire, this is meant to stop that chain reaction. There are also a couple of quality of life tweaks that might not sound glamorous, but add up during longer sessions. Quick Match now enforces default game settings for everyone, which means less weirdness when one player has an unusual configuration that the other never intended to use. The team also cleaned up situations where game boxes and arcade cabinets overlapped with text when you were browsing other games in the collection's front end. And they chased down some visual artifacts and stability snags that cropped up on certain hardware and drivers. If you've ever tried to show a friend how slick the presentation layer is, and then the interface decided to misalign on you, these fixes are for that. It's subtle housekeeping, but when you're curating a nostalgia-forward package, the wrapper matters. Now, if you're wondering how this fits into the pattern since launch, it's actually been a steady drumbeat of updates over the past week. A few days before this one, we had an earlier hotfix that focused heavily on audio behavior online, restored missing sound in the 32x version of MK2, and made some general improvements to MK4. That update also reduced the hold time for the pause button and, yes, enabled one-button finishers across the arcade titles. Those are the kinds of changes that make the collection friendlier to pick up and play, especially if you're rotating friends in and out of matches or just trying to show off the classics without fiddling through menus for 20 minutes. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Launch reception wasn't exactly celebratory. Steam reviews rolled in mixed, and there was a drumbeat of feedback about input latency, netcode behavior, and the absence of friend lobbies at launch. Multiple outlets and players flagged high latency on some platforms, inconsistencies in online stability, and a general feeling that the collection was fantastic as a museum piece, but needed more polish as a place to actually throw hands online. If that's your baseline experience, a small hotfix won't magically fix everything overnight, but these targeted changes do close off specific pain points that were causing folks to bounce off matchmaking.